I'm not making any money. This is for educational purposes only. Fair use. Fair use. Khan Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. Want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Kahaloyim, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachaha Kodash. Like to give double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well. To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, Shalom. To the Israelite foreigners who phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold. Shalom. To you sisters, you akhwatim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. This your brother Ram Yahawada with the lesson.
We are hearing mixed messages from President Trump and the administration about how long the war with Iran will continue. Yesterday, President Trump told CBS News, quote, "I think the war is very complete, pretty much." He also said the war would be over soon, but not within a week. At today's White House press briefing, Secretary Caroline Leavitt attempted to clarify the timeline.
Moving forward, the stated objectives for Operation Epic Fury remain the same. Destroy the terrorist regime's ballistic missiles, raise their Iranian missile industry to the ground, ensure their terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region, and ensure that Iran never obtains a nuclear weapon. President Trump remains confident these goals will be accomplished in swift fashion.
I want to bring in CBS News White House reporter Olivia Rinaldi. Olivia, what stood out to you from today's press briefing?
Well, a couple of things, Lindsay. The main headline that stood out to me was the White House confirming there are now about 140 to 150 service members who have been wounded in the war in Iran. Now, we did not get details about whether those were minor injuries, whether they happened as a result of the attacks or the counterattacks, but it is notable that Caroline was confirming it is around that number. CBS has independently said it is around 140 service members who have been wounded. Also of note, Caroline said that the initial timeline for the war was between 4 to 6 weeks for the duration of the operation. But she said today, ultimately, the operation will end when the commander-in-chief determines the military objectives have been met, fully realized, and that Iran is in a position of complete and unconditional surrender. So not necessarily talking about the political objectives, perhaps regime change in Iran, but saying when their military objectives have been met to make sure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon and that their military, Navy, and Air Force have been completely diminished. So quite notable there that they are now leaving the door a little bit open, saying that the initial timeline was 4 to 6 weeks, but now it's really up to when President Trump decides that he is ready for this war to be done.
Yeah, so this is AI overview. It says U.S. intelligence via Reuters estimates Iran has stockpiled up to 6,000 mines to potentially block the Strait of Hormuz using fast attack crafts or submarines to deploy them in near and narrow shipping lanes, while no large-scale mining has been confirmed in the 2026 conflict. It remains a credible threat to global oil supplies. So they're trying to give you another reason why your gas prices are going to go up. Key details to the potential threat. It says mine arsenal. Mine arsenal. Yeah. It says mine arsenal. Iran possesses a large, diverse arsenal of raw roughly it's like it of roughly 3,000 to 6,000 mines, including mortared, limpet, and drifting types. Okay. Method of deployment: Iran's Revolutionary Guard, small, fast attack boats are capable of quickly laying these mines in narrow, shallow, and critical choke points, right? Yeah, so this is Second Esdras chapter 15, verse 29. It says, where the nations, right, which is plural, right, of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, right? They're going to come out for war, basically. And so, yeah, so those Arabs, right, or Arabian, the dragons of Arabian, which would be Arabs, right, which a lot of these people right here, a lot of them believe in basically Islam, so which this is going to be the valley of Jehoshaphat, right, with their face turned towards the Caspian Sea and their hinder parts towards the Mediterranean, right? Some people say Red Sea too, but I believe it's supposed to be towards the hinder part towards the Red Sea. I mean, the Mediterranean Sea, right? But yeah, the Red Sea's there too. You know what I mean? Because if you think of they're facing this way, it could be their hinder parts. Basically, they'll be facing this way, and I mean technically, the Mediterranean will be behind you. This way, I guess, and the Red Sea that way. If you want to go that way, and then basically, this what they're going down into theirs where they're blocking off in that narrow spot right in here is in there is they're putting those mines down in there, right? So, and that's Elam, which are actually this is their original name, their biblical name, besides being the Persians, which is Elam, right? And but also where's it at? Right here. These are also people of Iran, right here, right? And I believe this is like the same area, pretty much of Turkey, but there's these people right here. Matter of fact, let's look this up real quick. Yeah, so this is a AI overview, right? And it says the Sumerians were in ancient nomadic Iraqi, right? Which Iraqi is going into being what? Elam, Persians, right? Speaking equestrian, right? People from Pontic Caspian steppe who thrived in the 8th and 7th century BCE, known for fierce cavalry warfare. They raided Anatolia, right? So that means they when you raid, you do things, you leave your seed there, especially when you be gone. You do this for a couple hundreds of years. You know what I mean? To maybe 1,000 years. You know what I mean? Or even if it's a few years, people's seed get left behind, right? So it's a good chance that they're a lot of them are still in that land. Maybe not how it used to be, but that's in that general area, which I believe that's kind of like where Turkey's at, right? So they could be still there, some of them, right? And then you got, of course, people are joined together by belief systems, It says con conquered Fiji, Phrygia, Phrygia, if I'm saying that right, Phrygia, Phrygia, sorry, that's lucky. And for the Assyrians, they were eventually displaced by the Scythians, right? So most likely that some of those people are still there in that area, and they were nomadic people at that, So, yeah. So I basically did all that to do this to come back because it's talking about the dragons of Arabia. So all those different Arab nations, which would really be Islamic nations, should I say, more of far as their belief system, right? Because it's saying Arabs, but I believe it's just a blanket thing. Because I believe Arab means mixed, right? So it's going to be a mixture of all those different people, and they're going to come together, and it says and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, and all they which heard them may fear and tremble. Right? See, that's what's happening. That's what's coming on. That's that World War III. It says also the Carmanians, right, raging in wrath, right, and I believe the Carmanians are basically Turkey, and I believe, like I was saying, that other one when it says Sumerians or whatever it is, that thing, that's pretty much that same area of Turkey, right? And they're kind of, and not to mention those people who are nomadic people at some time, right? Raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boar of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them. See, with all these Arabs to come against, Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, right? Come against this great whore, this Egyptian, what is it? Cruel Lord, right? He's going to be the cruel Lord in Egypt, right? To come up against them, right? It says, join battle with them and shall waste a portion of the land of Assyria, right? And I don't know if there's those what you call them. I think they might be joined with them. You know, because some of these nations have you know American bases in them. I mean, but America's also known as Assyria too. That's another thing too. That's spiritual. That could be spiritual in itself. I mean, it could be the land too, right in that land mass too. But then America's also known as Assyria too, right? Because it talks about him being the Assyrian, the rod of the Lord's anger, which that's really to come against the children of Israel over here in America. But then he did give him the power, right? That's why he's the hammer, the hammer of the earth, right? Going around the earth and putting damage to people. But people are going to stand up and fight. And that basically this is just showing you that whole entire region is of the valley of Jehoshaphat, where they're gonna think, because I basically I just showed you that in that thing. Where, matter of fact, we're gonna go to the map again. Yeah, it says right here, it says AI overview, the Carmanians or Carmanian Lides were a Turkish speaking Orthodox Christian, which I believe the predominantly religion in Turkey, I believe it's Islam, but somehow they're throwing it in like this. But community from Carman region of Central Anatolia, right? But yeah, could it not be or at least there might be mixture, right? Because these are Turkish people, but then it could be some of those Iranians mixed in with them. You know what I mean? Right? Which like I said, being under just being in that region, a lot of them believe in Islam, even though they're saying that Orthodox Christian, but I'm pretty sure a lot of them believe, and even then they have that Middle Eastern, that world mindset. It's a different, have that old world mindset about war, about how what war is, what's cowardly things and certain acts that America has done. So they're gonna join forces with Elam, right? With the Persians, right? Which they call Iran today, right? Yeah, see, I knew better. See right here, see AI overview, right? It says Islam is the most prominent religion in Turkey as of 2026. See, so they were trying to give you some Orthodox Christians. No. So those other those Iraqi, or however they, yeah, who were nomadic in that time, and whether they got kicked out or there's some of them may be still there or around in that area. They're right, and then just the people of Turkey in itself. So the thing of the people of Iran, right? In fact, let's check that out. Yeah, so I believe I seen this on another one. It's at 12 Sheila Islam, right? But it says remains. It says Shia Islam remains the most prominent religion in Iran. See, right? Proven. Well, Iran is Elam. Elam goes back to Shum, and the Arabians are mostly Ishmaelites, right? But then, like I said, Arabia basically it basically means mixed or whatever. But we understand to be Ishmael, right? Descendants of Ishmael, right? Even though Ishmael is Shemite too, right? He's from Shem too. He's from Shem too, but it's a different type of a Shemite, right? Because one's Ishmael, and then one's Elam, which would be way older, like one of Shem's children directly, right? So it's yeah. So they're not the exact same, right? Because one's Ishmael and one's Elam, but they're cleaved together through the religion, and that's what is going to bring the Arabians, the dragons of Arabian, with the Carmanians, right along with Elam, and they're going to band together and to come against Esau, Edom, right? The self-proclaimed so-called white man, right? Prominent religion in 2026, officially designed as the state of 12 Jaffe 12 see if I'm not saying it right. Salakia.
12 Jafari.
Chelva Joffrey. Yeah. So that's their religion primarily. Right? So that's what they're gonna band together under. So but they're not the same people. Right, just trying to get that out. They're not Ishmael, but they are Shemitic. But they do believe under the same religion type banner. Yeah, so this is Joel chapter 2, verse 20. But I will remove far off from the north country, the northern army, from you, the northern army, right, which is dealing with America, right? They're the northern army as far as over here in America, North America, and will drive him into a land barren, right? Which that will be, pretty much shows you that in the map right there, and it says into a land barren and desolate, with his face towards the East Sea, right? I believe that's the Caspian Sea, will be east, and towards the East Sea, his hinder part, which I believe that'd be the Mediterranean, right? Part towards the utmost sea, right? And he and his hinder part towards the utmost sea, yeah. That'd be like the Mediterranean. And a lot of people say that the Red Sea too, but I mean the Red Sea, I guess the Mediterranean's behind them too, right there, but then the Red Sea's down right here. And but I mean, like I said, I could but I believe it's supposed to be like the Mediterranean is supposed to be behind them. Because you're looking towards the east, going that way, right? And yeah, the utmost sea, and his stank shall come up, right? Because that's where they're going to get destroyed at, in the valley of Jehoshaphat. The Lord's going to gather all the armies there, and he's going to destroy them all. And his stank shall come up, and his ill savor, right, the stink, shall come up, because he have done great things, right? And that's where the Lord's basically going to judge all the armies of the earth are going to be in that place right there, the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? And so basically, what their faces towards what? Basically, the sea. It said the sea, but that's the Caspian Sea, right? And then the hinder part towards the hindermost of them towards the sea, and this would be what, the Mediterranean Sea, right? Right. So they'll be marching through, going through over here, right, towards Iran, which is Elam, right, going against Elam, which is the Persians, right? Yeah, it says Joel chapter 3, verse 2, I will also gather all the nations, I will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, right? The letter J is only 400 to 500 years old, so the letter J never existed in that time in ancient history and antiquity. Is, this is only invented like in the 1500s or so, right? It's fairly new, which it never existed in any alphabet, right? Even though they try to give you some BS thing, he elongated the I and all this other stuff. Well, why it never existed in Greek culture? Because even in Greek culture, 2,000 years ago, it would have never existed, right? But if you look it up today, they'll pass it off like it's nothing. Oh, they just elongated the I, and it's, well, if you elongate the I, it should still make an I sound. Just because you put a hook on it, why would it say J? It doesn't make sense, right? So, and I will plead, which means judge them there for my people, which are the Israelites, so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, and you Israelite foreigners around the world who phenotype may or may not look like another nation, right? Because you could still look like an Israelite, but you'll be in a Gentile state of mind, right? But a lot of times your phenotype look like another nation, but your bloodline goes back to Israel through your father, and then those who may or may not come back to the fold, and that will be decided when the angels divide up, separate the wheat from the tare, right? And it says, and plead with them there for my people and for my heritage, Yasharallah, right? Because they call themselves Israel or Israeli, and that's a farce, right? Well, Yasharallah, which they don't call themselves that, whom they have scattered, right? Which that's what happened through transatlantic slave trade, which this goes into that if you keep going down, but I'm not going to go into that right now. Scattered among the nations and parted my land, right? And they basically hacked up the land between Islam and technically the Talmud, right? Because they say they're the people and they fit prophecy, but technically they believe in the Talmud. Technically they believe in being Zionists or whatever you call it. When there's no such thing as any of that in the scriptures, Zionists and Jewish and Israeli and all this madness. So, but this is all that battle that they're meant to be put in, which is for that day, Armageddon, right? Yeah. So basically, what the second woe is past. Behold, which means feast your eyes, look, pay attention. The third woe comes quickly, and we're there. We're finally there. Yeah, so with all that, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachaha Kodash. I'd like to give double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well, to the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, Shalom, to the Israelite foreigners whose phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father, and have come back to the fold. Shalom to you sisters, you Achwathim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence, and a Baba Ball, Chom Yasharallah.